Hey, welcome back. In the last lesson, you got an overview of the different types of violations or warnings you might have received from Google. Now that you understand how deep you are in Google jail, let's talk about how to get you out of it. This is important because if you don't fix things the right way, you'll be stuck there longer than you need to be, or you'll get yourself into deeper trouble with Google. Google suspends accounts for many reasons related to Google Ads policy violations. Knowing why your account has been suspended is the first thing you should find out. If you're in this course, chances are you're dealing with a circumventing system suspension. But here are the main reasons for suspension I have encountered in my work with clients. First, suspicious payment suspension. This one often happens when there are payment issues such as unverified cards or chargebacks, and it's hard to reverse. Next, business verification suspensions. No big mystery here. Google needs documentation to verify you're a legitimate business, especially in regulated fields. Usually, it's just a matter of sending in the right paperwork and you're back in business. Next, unpaid balance suspension. This one's simple. If you have an unpaid bill, your ads are paused. Just pay it off and you're good to go. Next, advertising policy violation. This is a really common one. If your ad content doesn't align with Google's policies, you will get flagged. Fix it by making your content fully policy compliant and appealing the suspension. You'll actually learn a few ways to take care of the suspension right here in this course, even though this course covers quite a bit more than that. For the purpose of this course, we're diving deep into circumventing system suspensions. While this one is perhaps not that common, it is definitely the trickiest one to deal with. This one occurs when you get into trouble for something minor with Google, but then they catch you doing something they see as going around or circumventing their policies. These can be nearly impossible to recover from, but rest assured it can be done. Now, most people don't set out to purposely trick Google or go around their systems. This is something that most often happens accidentally. Let me explain why. Everyone's timeline of what went wrong looks unique, but usually what I find is that people will get a few warnings from Google, they don't understand what they mean or how to fix them, and then they take some sort of action to get their ads working. Have you ever started a new account because yours got suspended? This is an example of circumventing the system. You weren't trying to do anything wrong. You simply didn't understand what got you flagged in the first place. And that was your way of fixing it, right? But this is a huge offense in Google's eyes. Let's talk about some of the other things Google would get you for under this category of circumventing. First up is content manipulation. Now, content manipulation can happen in a couple of ways. The two big ones are cloaking and URL redirects. Google wants users to end up exactly where they expect. If your ad links to a page that then redirects somewhere else, especially without making it obvious to the user, Google sees this as an attempt to mislead. Writing content to bypass Google review systems. This is creating versions of prohibited advertising, websites, or content to avoid detection and enforcement processes, such as multiple accounts leading to one final URL and using hacked domains or tools. My client was advertising a mobile game app. In their ads, they attempted to creatively circumvent Google's restrictions by deliberately misspelling free bonus as FR33 bonus. Despite attempting to rectify this after the initial rejection, the ads were still flagged for text manipulation through intentional misspellings. Cloaking is a way of displaying different material to specific users, including Google, that intends to or results in interference with its review processes. You are showing different content to Google and to its users, such as misleading ads or URLs that redirect to a different site than what is advertised. In particular, the act of trying to conceal non-compliance action with circumventing systems in Google Ads. Cloaking is like putting on a disguise, showing one thing to Google's crawlers and something completely different to users. If Google thinks you're hiding the true content of your landing page, that's a major red flag. Google considers cloaking a major violation because it undermines transparency and user trust. But it's important to note that cloaking does not include providing content personalization that adds genuine value to certain users, such as different language variations of the same content, or different variations of the same content depending on the user's internet service provider. As long as the offering is still substantially the same, the variation in content is still compliant with Google Ads policies, and Google is able to review a version of the content. All right, let's now talk about URL redirects. Google does not play around when it comes to these violations. If your ad redirects users to sites with dynamic IP addresses or shifting content, Google considers that content manipulation. It is a red flag for suspicious activity. And this goes without saying. And it's probably not what lands you in Google jail, but you absolutely cannot redirect folks to pages with illegal content or sketchy auto redirects or pop-up ads. Google sees this as malicious behavior as well. Redirects like these are seen as a way to dodge Google's enforcement. And trust me, that's the quickest way to land you in Google jail. Next, repeat violations. Continually violating Google's policies despite warnings, even if the violation is minor, but happens repeatedly, Google may see it as an attempt to circumvent. One of the more common mistakes is having ads constantly denied because of violations. If the violations are numerous, it could tip Google that you're attempting to circumvent the system by constantly attempting to get disapproved ads approved. This mistake happens all the time. People are unaware of what the true issue is, so they make random changes hoping that something will stick. This is why it's so important to know what you're doing before you repeatedly request a review from Google. Or you can chat Google to ensure that you're making the right changes. Now let's talk about third-party software. Using third-party tools can be a violation of Google Ads policies if they aren't authorized or if they're used in a way that manipulates the system. Many advertisers use third-party tools such as CRMs that can change URLs or use their own URLs. Also, some hidden settings may trigger Google Ads automated review systems. You might be saying, okay, I haven't done any of these things. But think again. Many of my clients don't even know that they're doing these things because it's all being done by that third-party software behind the scenes. If you use any of these common third-party softwares, HubSpot, Unbounce, Instapages, it's likely you've gotten flagged for circumventing. Third-party software can have confusing toggles for features that give you control over things like how your URL is displayed. It's easy for people to make little decisions that they don't understand the implications of, and this is what could land you in Google jail. Luckily, you can use a tool like Screaming Frog to find URLs created by third-party software that may be triggering Google systems. It can also let you know if there are any URLs that are being redirected by third-party software, either yours or malicious software. Once you find any issues, you can problem solve with that particular software by disconnecting it, setting it up again the right way, or avoiding it altogether. All right, moving on to the next one. I already touched on this one little bit before, but multiple accounts is a big no-no. This is creating multiple Google Ads accounts to bypass previous policy violations or account suspensions. Whether repeated or simultaneous, policy violations across any of your accounts, including using 2 or more accounts to post ads that violate this or any other Google policy. For example, creating new domains or accounts to post ads that are like ads that you have been disapproved for, or any other Google Ads policy. Let's say, for example, that you get your Google Ads account suspended due to issues with the verification of your business operations. Attempting to solve this, you create a new Gmail account and set up a new Google Ads account. Google will notice this and suspend your account, but this time, the violation will be for violating the Google Ads circumventing systems policy. Lastly, false information. If you happen to submit false business information when verifying your identity or business details, you will be flagged by Google. Let's say you misentered info when you're verifying your account with Google and you enter in the wrong information. This is a common mistake, but Google's system doesn't know that this is accidental and not intentional. False information that commonly gets flagged by Google includes incorrect personal info, whether that's outdated or simply keyed in wrong. Misleading business info, which again could be outdated or incorrectly entered. And it also could be something more intentional, like forged documents or misrepresentation of your identity, such as claiming you're the owner when you're not. Ultimately, Google's system does not know your intentions behind submitting false information, so even the innocent violations will be flagged. So, now that you understand how these really common circumventing policy violations happen, let's talk about how to fix it. So what's the first step to getting out of Google jail? First, you have to go back to the original problem that got your ads disapproved. Don't ignore it. Find out exactly which policy you violated and fix that immediately. But what happens if you can't identify the problem? If you couldn't figure it out yourself, especially after reviewing the explanation of reasons in this lesson, contact Google. I do not advise you try to figure it out yourself if you're really stumped, because you may end up getting yourself further into Google jail. Also, don't click the appeal button at this point. This is not how you get in touch with them. The appeal button is for the very end of the process, once you've taken care of all of the issues. You can contact Google through chat, email, or by calling them. There should be information within the communications they have sent you that point you in the right direction to contact them. Again, do not click the appeal button at this time. Once you've contacted Google and you know what the issue is, then you'll want to return to this lesson and ensure you fully understand your reason for suspension. Even if you're sure you understand it, skim through the lessons once more just to make sure. If you do not need to contact Google to figure out the root of the problem, great. Proceed without contacting Google. Bottom line is, you need to identify the reason you got suspended before you proceed. Now, once you have identified the reason, you'll likely find that it falls under one of two categories: healthcare and medicines violations and misrepresentation violations. In the next two lessons, I'll go over the most common policy violations I see my clients struggling with under these two categories. You'll learn not only how to fix these violations, but also how to make sure you never violate these policies again. If you're like many of my clients, you probably violated multiple policies. And if you didn't today, you may in the future. That's why I highly recommend taking both of these lessons. But if you need a quick fix right away, take the one that applies to your current violations and then return to the course once it's taken care of to complete the other lesson as well. After all of that, it's time to contact Google again, but this time you get to hit appeal. Locate the original email they sent you and you'll find that magic appeal button. Now, this should hopefully get you back up and running, but there are rare cases that you might be stuck in Google jail. And if that's the case, you'll want to escalate the issue to a Google employee, a real human, to resolve the problem. Or, better yet, book a consultation with me. I'll help you work through it. You can find information on how to book a consultation on my website, QuincyLSB.com. Again, Most of you should be able to figure this out with the tools in this course alone. However, for trickier situations, it might be helpful to work with me directly. One important thing I should note, the key to getting out of Google jail is fixing everything all at once. Don't try to appeal without knowing exactly what's wrong. Don't keep escalating this issue without making the necessary fixes. If you do, Google might suspend your account for good, and no one wants that. So, now that you know the process of getting out of Google jail, use the Get Out of Google Jail flowchart to keep track of your progress. As mentioned before, in the next 2 lessons, I will dive into specific violations you are dealing with. Depending on what you're up against, you will want to navigate to either lesson. But I highly recommend taking both lessons, as you may face different violations in future scenarios. So, determine what content is best for you to consume next, and I'll see you there.